We are having a conversation with someone who had a long career gap and a degree in business administration. Then she started preparing for data science and eventually she became a data scientist at Amazon. She worked at Amazon for a few years and now she's working at Google as a data analytics lead. Sundas Khalid's journey is very inspirational when it comes to women in data science. She also runs a YouTube channel and an influential Instagram page, and she has been featured on Forbes magazine. In this video, we are going to discuss her entire journey, and also towards the end, if you are planning to make a transition from non-technical background to data science, we will be discussing some of the tips and also the tips of getting into big companies like Google and Amazon. Let's get started. Sundas, thanks for spending time for this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
All right, so let's start with your role at Google. Tell us, what do you do exactly as a, I think, data analytics lead, and what kind of technologies and tools do you use?
Yeah, I'm happy to share a bit in terms of what I do at Google. So I have been at Google for about 2 years, and my role is analytical lead, which is a mix of many different roles. You can say like it's data science times strategy times product. And these are like all of my strength areas. And I love that this role kind of like combines all of those areas into one role. So that was like that was one of the reasons I was like super excited to join this role and to on top of it like working at Google. So that's pretty much my work. The gist of my work, if I want to say it like very simple English terms, that would be like turning data into insights. And I primarily work with Google search engine domain data on search as well as shopping side of things. And yeah, in terms of the tools, I would say I use mostly like internal Google tools. So there's like a lot of in-house built tools that I use. Google Colab is a big one that I use on my day-to-day, and then a bunch of internal tools that are built for data extraction as well as data analysis. I also use R Studio as well as bunch of like internal data access tools.
Got it. So, I know every company, especially big companies like Google and Amazon, they are kind of building their own toolkit to solve this data related problem. And I assume you are doing programming as well, right? Like either using Python or R.
Yeah, so it totally depends on the project. So for some project, I'll be using SQL, then I'll be using Python or R, depending on, so there's like no hard criteria. That's what I love about it as well, that it's like totally up to me what I'm feeling like using. So if I really want to work in a Python, then I would do that. Specifically working in a Google Colab, I feel like Python works very well with it. But let's say if there's something quick and dirty I want to do, then I would like use R Studio on my local machine and then do the quick analysis and be done with it.
Cool. Now, your story of being successful in the data industry is quite inspiring because of two reasons. Number one is you have a degree in business administration. You didn't do your education in computer science or data science. And then you also had a career gap. So you want to discuss about these two aspects and also what inspired you to join data industry?
Yeah, I'm happy to share a little bit about my backstory. So a long story short, I am actually a high school dropout, which a lot of people don't know. And I had to leave my high school unfinished, and then I had a 6-year gap. And then I had a major life health crisis, which basically pushed me to go back to school. So I actually started at a community college. I took online classes, and then I transitioned into a 4-year college university program. So I went to University of Washington. And at that time, like I grew up with, we didn't have a computer growing up in the house. We didn't have phones at back then. So for me, and I didn't have anybody in the family who was working in tech or computer. Like I had no idea people can actually work from their computers. Like when I first learned that was like mind boggling to me that can people really do that? Like, is that for real? So when I went back to school, I was still not very aware of like the tech industry and the computer science and the data science. So when I enrolled back in the school, I went back with the aim to get a business degree. While taking the business degree, there were at University of Washington, like if you start there, they encourage you. My counselor told me that to encourage me to like take a bunch of courses in different areas so I can like figure out what my interest is. And one of the courses that I took was information systems. And that course specifically introduced me to databases, SQL, and all that world that I didn't even know existed. So for me, that class pretty much sparked my interest. But for me, it was a little bit too late to change my major because I did my 2 years at community college. So I was at my final 2 years. And it took me a long time to even get to business school because I was rejected the first time and then I tried again. So it was kind of too late for me to kind of change my major and go into computer science or go more focused into data science. But then what I ended up doing is I started taking a lot of courses outside of the business school to kind of like build my skill set to work in a data field. Eventually ended up in a role as an internship at Amazon, where I worked as a financial analyst intern / data analyst intern. The internship was kind of sold to me. This is like very data focused. I also did before joining Amazon, I did a pro bono internship. Pro bono is basically you work for free for somebody. And I did work for a startup because I literally started with a blank resume and nobody was willing to hire me. After that pro bono internship, I got Amazon's attention, interned there for about 8 months, networked a lot with people who were working in the data domain. And I fell more and more in love with the data side of things, talking to those people. Finished my internship. I did great. Like my project, there were 40 interns who did their projects, and my project was the top, the top project. And there were people from Ivy League schools, from Harvard, Stanford. It was crazy to me at that time. Like, how can somebody like me, who started with a blank resume, went to community college, is now finishing her internship project at one of the top tech companies, at the top of her class. So that was crazy to me. But that was my first milestone where I realized, okay, I'm good at this. Like I got this. But yeah, eventually, like I networked enough at Amazon where I built my network. So when I got the offer to go back to Amazon, but they were giving me the offer to go back as full-time as a financial analyst. And then I was very clear with my manager and the recruiting team as well that that's not what I want to do. I want to do more data focused. Ended up taking more classes, knew enough at that point to be able to pass a technical interview for a data engineer. So the networking that I did during my internship, I basically landed interviews through that network for data engineering position. And I got data engineering offer from 2 teams. And when my team kind of found out that I got an offer from 2 other teams at Amazon, they were like, no, we want you back. We'll create this role for you. Just like come join us. So I ended up going back to that team because I was pretty familiar. I interned there. I was pretty familiar with the data and people and everything.
You joined as a data engineer in that team.
Yeah. So I enjoyed, I joined them as a data engineer full-time. So that was basically my first full-time job.
Amazing.
Working at Amazon as a data engineer. And for me, like learning data engineering was literally like everything I learned on the job. And I got super lucky with the teammates. The senior teammate was like super awesome. He basically guided me quite a bit. So I owe it a lot to him and all the people in the team who were like super supportive and encouraging in helping me kind of like learn and then deliver.
I think it helps if one becomes very clear about what they want to do in their career and kind of become little assertive. Your whole incident about they offering job as a financial analyst and you saying no, I mean, that takes courage and that shows the clarity of thought that people had. Many times people are offered a job and they don't feel confident. They have self-doubts. So they say, okay, take whatever we are getting. But instead of that, if they follow your approach, which is, no, I want to do this thing, and kind of convince them that I'm ready to learn whatever it takes for this role, I think that approach really helps.
It definitely does. I do want to mention one more point that, so it takes, I think for me, as well as for a lot of people, sometimes it has to be like, you have to be at the right place at the right time, because it would have been possible that I was in a team and I was like pretty strong about like, this is what I want to do. But then I didn't have anything to show them, like things that I've done to kind of learn and grow in the field. So I think having the supporting team plus like having that back kind of like work done helped me quite a bit. In addition to that, I had like multiple other offers from other companies, full-time offers from other companies. So that also like put pressure on Amazon that like she's pretty competitive in what she does. So they were like all over me in a way, basically.
Got it. Now, do you want to discuss a little bit about English? Because when we were talking on phone last time, you said that you failed some English test and English, you were not good at English. So let's discuss
Okay.
that story.
Yes, I can tell you all about it. So English is not my first language. And when I moved to USA, I struggled a lot. Like I didn't go to an English school back home. So I had to basically learn from scratch. And the way I learned English is by watching TV. So that 6 years that the gap that I took, I watched a lot of TV during that time. And I watched a lot of Friends and then like bunch of other shows. And basically that's how I picked up English. But like speaking English is one thing and then writing it is a completely different thing. So when I went back to school, the business school specifically requires that you write a writing assessment test. And I failed that test miserably. And for me, like that was a reminder, like, yes, English is my second language. And even though I can speak it, maybe not as fluently, I'm like, there's still a lot more work that I need to do. So basically I hired, after like failing that exam, getting rejected, I basically hired a tutor who I worked with for the next 6 months to basically work on my written English. But like English is like, I speak English. I feel like I sometimes I have an accent, sometimes I don't, which is confusing to me because it just comes, I don't know, like it just like happens. I don't even notice it. I think other people notice it. And you will notice, like if you watch some of my YouTube videos, you'll notice like I can't pronounce certain words. Like I just can't. Like job description, it takes me a lot of hard work to say that word. There's another word called vulnerable, which I can't really say. I don't know how to say.
You have to break
Can you
it
say
down into like sub
Yeah.
words literally and say one by one.
Can you say it? Like, do you know how to say that?
Vulnerable.
Okay, yeah, see, you got it. I just can't say for the life of me. Yesterday, I was like giving a work training and I was like trying to say intimate, and I kept saying intimidating, and that was just like not like that word did not work in terms of what I was trying to say. But yeah, English is my second language. I think at some point I started feeling not ashamed of it and not embarrassed of it. Like if I am not pronouncing a certain word, so what? Like English is my second language. I know multiple languages and it's completely okay. Like if anything, it shows that it shows my strength and shows the work that I had to put in to actually learn multiple languages. So I'm actually proud of my accent whenever it comes out, and I'm proud of the mispronunciation as well. It does take a lot of hard work, and I think sometimes like in certain cultures it's perceived that like if you speak English it's actually you're highly educated if you speak it. I don't believe that. I think that's just like BS. Like this language,
I grew up
any
in
language
India.
is beautiful.
I grew up in India, and this was exactly the perception that if someone is talking in English, that person is perceived to be the super smart guy in the room. But that perception is kind of breaking as more and more people get educated because of social media, internet, so many other factors. That perception is breaking. And by the way you're talking, no one can even guess that English is your second language, and you started learning it very late in your life. And
Yeah.
I have similar experiences, by the way, with the English. So till my 12th grade, I was in my local language medium. I studied English just as one subject. So until
Okay.
12th grade, all my education, physics, chemistry, biology, everything that I studied was in my native language, which is Gujarati back in India.
I see.
And I developed certain accent. I don't know how to say accent or accent. See, even I have
Accent.
accent, right? I have struggled
Yeah.
saying that. And I would say, and you know what helped me improve my English is actually YouTube. So when I started doing YouTube videos, I was not afraid. Same like you. Okay, if I mispronounce something, be it. I mean, I will improve it. So
Yeah.
I will, when I have to say zero, I will usually say zero, because in my language, like people, my area, like where I grew up, people say zero. Now zero
Mm-hmm.
sounds like so weird. Also, if you one of my very popular video, Jupyter Notebook, I have
Mm-hmm.
complete Jupyter Notebook tutorial, and this was
Mm-hmm.
only 5 years back, by the way. This is after living in US for 7 to 8 years. I would say
I would not say notebook. I would say not book. It's like not book.
Okay.
It's not a
Yeah.
book. And so many people commented and they criticized me, and I would just practice every day. It's not
Oh my God. It's
not, it's
ridiculous.
not.
I think like sometimes people just don't know what to say, so they just say stupid stuff like this. Like I have learned it the hard way to not pay attention to anything like that. Like
Oh yeah,
you know you're
I don't
amazing. I know I'm amazing. Like we don't need like validation.
absolutely. I I take all that positive feedback very positively, and with YouTube and social media, I have seen that people are generally nice. Most of the time, they write comment in a nice way. I mean, you get one-off comment here and there, but who cares? You can ignore that.
Yeah.
But for me, YouTube was a medium that improved my English, my pronunciation, my writing, everything. Because there's this huge crowd who is constantly judging you, and they're
Yeah,
giving this
they are.
honest feedback. They don't have to worry about anything, right? A guy
Yeah.
sitting in England can write a comment to me and he doesn't have to worry about anything. There is no
Yeah.
implication. So that way, I mean, I took that thing very positively because I was speaking English. My friend circle, my colleagues, no one told me that certain words are pronounced are totally horrible because everyone wants to be nice with you. But with YouTube, I kind of improved a lot. So I want to thank YouTube as a platform.
That's
All right,
awesome.
cool.
That's awesome.
So you were working at Amazon as a
Mhm.
data engineer, and now you are in data analytics. So data engineering, data analytics, both are data related careers, but they're different. So let's discuss about how you transition from Amazon to Google. Also, if you
Mhm.
want to briefly discuss some of the projects that you worked on Amazon, feel free to share that with us.
Yeah. So let me talk about my transition from data engineering to data scientist. So when I previously I mentioned that I started my career as a data engineer at Amazon, and I did that for about 2 years. After I did data engineering for about 2 years, I started feeling pretty comfortable with the space. And one of the things I think I've mentioned in one of my videos as well, like one of the things that really got to me was that like a lot of times I would get like requests from business stakeholders, can you pull this data for me? And I would pull the data for them, and the data will be like, I don't know what happened to the data after, like they would do some analysis and then they present. And I started realizing that I want to be in that room where decisions are being made with the data that I am preparing. So for that basically started the itch for me. Like I wanted to do more. And then I ended up doing like a project that was more around focusing on like data analytics. And I was like, okay, this looks interesting. And eventually, I made a transition to a team where there were a lot of data scientists and research scientists were already working. I transitioned in that team as a data engineer, but I had an agreement with my hiring manager that you're going to help me. Basically, the team is going to help me transition into data science. And in that team, again, I got super lucky with the manager. I think I talked about it in like talk about like my manager. I love that manager. His name is Sergey, and he is like the best manager I could have ever had. I would love to work for him any day. He's amazing. So he was basically my mentor, my teacher. He basically guided me. He was super supportive of my learning process. He was very patient with me. And in addition to that, like the people in the team, since there was already work done in the data science, like a lot of projects were already done before I even joined, there was a lot of work that I could study and learn from. And then I could pick up more projects and like do it on my own. So eventually I basically, there would be times where I would be like reading line by line code of what every person has written. And then I would basically try to understand it. And then I'll be doing a lot of reading in my own time, trying to understand the concepts. And then I would come to work and then apply it on actual projects that I was given. So eventually I did that. That process was about 6 months long. And finally, at that point, like when I transitioned to that team, the data scientist job family did not exist. So a lot of the people that were there were primarily research scientists, which is a completely different job family from data scientists. So as soon as the data scientist job family got created within Amazon, my manager put me and Daliana, which I don't know if you know, she is basically pretty big on LinkedIn. So Daliana and I, we were teammates. So basically Daliana, myself, and then one other teammate, all three of us got transitioned to data scientists, the job family. Ended up staying in that team, working in the data science domain for about 3 years. My work was primarily focused on the experimentations that were being run on Amazon globally. And some of the projects that actually got me awards, I can talk about those. One of the biggest projects that I worked on was there was a new team built at Amazon, which was called New to Amazon Customers, New Customers to Amazon, basically. And that team basically started from scratch, and they were trying to figure out like what are they should be optimizing for, like what is the business problem they should be solving, what are they gonna optimize for, like what metrics they should be looking at, how they should be evaluating those metrics. So basically, I figured out what makes make a new to Amazon customer more valuable to Amazon. So based on that research, basically the team agreed with the methods and approach that the methodology that I proposed, and ended up taking it to basically that was their next year's goal that they were going to optimize against. So that project actually ended up getting me an award, my manager an award, and my team an award for team collaboration because it was a different team. So again, like the projects that I would work on would vary from team to team. And I was actually lucky enough that I got to work with literally entire Amazon. The new to Amazon custom team was one of the teams that I worked with. I also worked with Alexa when Alexa was actually launching, and they were trying to do experimentation, and they were trying to figure out like how to measure success of an Alexa device or Alexa engagement. I was basically part of that initiative, that project. Amazon Smile was actually my internship project. So Amazon Smile, basically, we were trying to, at that time, I was in the marketing team. So we were trying to understand like Amazon Smile's like marketing and spend and how we can optimize it. I can go on like talking about projects. Let me know when you want me to stop. I also got to work with the checkout team, the gateway page team. The gateway page is basically the homepage, the navigation, which you see on the site, like, and on the front, Amazon Prime, Amazon Video, AWS, like pretty much all those teams, like they all have different challenges in terms of like how to measure and optimize their product. And I basically during those 3 years, like I basically got to work with pretty much a lot of Amazon business teams as well as product teams.
Wow, so you got so much experience working on diverse set of projects at Amazon. So let's discuss about your transition into Google, what inspired you to join Google, and also how was the interview process and things like that.
I can tell you a little bit in terms of what led to my transition. So basically, as I said, like Amazon was my first company when I started in the industry. And I spent about 7 years, if I include my internship time period as well. And eventually I got to a point where my learning curve kind of like flattened a bit. And so for me, like that was a clear sign that I needed to kind of like look around and like get more industry experience and work on like different products, different domains. And additionally, you probably know this, that there's like in a lot of these big companies that you are granted RSUs as like your hiding grant. So basically most of them like end up getting vested at the end of your 4-year mark. So your total compensation takes a dip. And at that point you do start evaluating like, is it more beneficial for me to stay within this company, or should I be switching to a different company and kind of like continue the progression that I've had in my total compensation. So that was also definitely an influential factor. So all those things combined, and my manager that I was talking about, like he left the team. I did get a new manager who was great, but like I definitely missed working with him. So I was interviewing with his team as well at that time. But because of all the other things that I mentioned, I decided to basically look outside and ended up at Google. So Google, it was interesting because like this was not the first time I interviewed at Google. I interviewed 2 times before and I was rejected. So this was my 3rd time trying, and I was like kind of like done with it. I was like, okay, if this doesn't happen this time, it's not gonna happen. So the 3rd time I try, I got the job offer. It was just like right team and right time as well. So a bit of it was luck because you have to, because I'm in Seattle, and in Seattle, there's not a lot of opportunities. Like at that time, I'm sure like a lot of things are remote now. So for me, there wasn't a lot of options. So there had to be like some right time and right place and right role, and all of those things had to like align. All my stars had to align for for me to be able to kind of like find a role within Google. And obviously, like Google is a great place. Like I heard great things. So it was on my top of the list. And yeah, ended up working. I've been here for about 2 years and no regrets. I'm super happy with my decision. My favorite thing about Google is the work-life balance. And because of that, I've been like able to do a lot of other things that I'm doing currently, which includes like doing YouTube as well as Instagram and a lot of the other things that I actually enjoy outside of work. So
Nice, awesome. So now, since you have transitioned from non-technical degree to data industry, let's say if anyone who is watching this video, they are from non-data science or non-computer science background, let's say mechanical engineer or having a business degree, and in that situation they might be working somewhere, having a family. So in that situation, if they want to transition to data industry, either become data scientist or data analyst, what are the three concrete steps that you would suggest that they should take in that situation to begin this journey?
yeah, that's a great question. And I have like shared a detailed video about this on my channel as well. So I would just like summarize the things here. So I think first thing, like especially if you're coming from a non-tech background, the first thing that you should be doing is like trying to understand what data science is. And when we're talking about career opportunities, like try to understand what are the career opportunities are within the data science. Because one job family is very different. So there are many job family, there are many like roles under the data science umbrella. So some example would be, let's say applied scientist, machine learning engineer, research scientist, a data scientist, generalist, and a few other, right? So first thing you would need to do is, I think a lot of people make a mistake. They're like, I want to enter data science, but then they don't know like where exactly what they're targeting. So they like start learning everything else. So the first thing is like understand the job family, understand what are the job roles that are available within the domain, and then see like what interests you and what do you want to target. So once you have done that, the second thing I would recommend is like, let's say you have narrowed down a role, let's say machine learning engineer is what you want to do. Then in your area, wherever your target location is, start looking at job descriptions and start looking at what people who are working in that role, what did they actually do and what is the type of work that they do that is basically helping them grow in their career and basically help them get into the role. So here I also like reading the job description is also important because it kind of gives you some sort of idea in terms of what skill set is required, so you can create your study plan in terms of what skill set you should be studying for and what you should be optimizing for. And then the third step is like start learning. There are so many great options out there depending on your bandwidth and your time. Like you can either pursue a full-on degree program, there's so many boot camps, or you can do something which I did and a lot of other people do is like self-learning. The self-learning part does require a lot of discipline and a lot of work and a lot of research to kind of like create that curriculum. But it is like from the money standpoint is somewhat of a cheapest. I don't know, like, but yeah, for me it was like I didn't have to pay a college tuition and take time out of my full-time job to kind of like pursue a degree program. So yeah, so there are like so many options for you out there. And also like start networking, like start making friends, start networking with people who are already working in the industry, because they will sometimes tell you things that you wouldn't be able to figure out from like reading online articles or watching videos and things like that.
That's an excellent advice.
The point you mentioned about preparing your own customized learning plan is super important, because if you think about,
let's say, data analyst as a career, there are 10 or 20 different career paths in data analyst. I've seen data analysts who just work with tools like SAS or some other
UI based tool where they're building dashboards and they don't do coding at all.
And then there are other roles where you're working mainly in Python and Pandas. There are data analyst roles where you just pretty much work in Excel and that's it. So there are so many.
It's so all over the place, Naval. I can't even tell you. Like that's my biggest pet peeve, and I struggled a lot when I was job searching because like the interviews were messed up. I would go to interview 1 where the interview would be like all about ML. I would go to interview 2 where the interview would be all about data analysts. Like, and it was so confusing. Every time I had an interview, like I had this anxiety and like, I don't know what I'm gonna get into today. but like it's so all over the place. And I hope like this issue gets resolved in the industry at some point. I don't know when it will happen, but I hope it does. In the meanwhile, I think like the best we can do is like read those job descriptions and try to understand, like not the title. I think titles are deceiving. The job description itself are tell you way more about the role itself than the title would. So a lot of people are using inflated titles such as data scientist to hire data analysts and vice versa. So
Yeah, exactly. And
The problem with today's world is abundance. When I grew up back in time,
we lived in scarcity. I had two pair of clothes. If you want to study, you have just one college, you go there, and whatever teacher is teaching you there, there was no internet. Now, if you want to do study and like data analysis study, there are 100 boot camps, 100 courses on Udemy, so many YouTube channels, right? Oh my God, so many books. So the issue that people are facing is they are just getting lost in the jungle of
mhm.
information. And
Yeah.
if there is someone who can guide them and say, okay, you need to consume only this much information, that would be
Mhm.
extremely helpful. And that person could be your mentor. Maybe you do
Mhm.
networking on LinkedIn, or you'd connect with your college seniors who are working in the industry and get some guidance on your path. Basically, design your own customized learning path and don't just try to consume every single piece of information, every single YouTube video that is out there.
Yeah.
So that's super important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy to get overwhelmed. As you said, like there's so much information out there. And if you start taking every person's advice and watching every single video, taking every single course, you will be learning for the rest of your life and you will still not sure like what exactly, you'll not be sure what exactly you're supposed to learn. So I think that's why like maybe like targeting a company, starting with like targeting a company and targeting a role, it gives you some sort of direction where you are like are able to like cut out the fluff in the sense like that is not relevant to you. So that's why like this kind of strategy sort of works, but like yeah, again, like it's not ideal because it's a big mess.
So a few minutes back, you talked about.
your YouTube channel and Instagram page.
So can you share some details on what kind of videos you post out or what kind of posts you put on the Instagram page?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. Well, first of all, on YouTube, I am literally a baby. I'm a newbie, so I'm learning a lot from your channel. Thanks for starting this whole thing and like putting so many videos out there. So I'm trying to learn as I go. So in my on my YouTube channel, I primarily like talk about data science and a bit about my life at Google, where like kind of like more like vlog style. But then I'm trying to do like more and more data science education videos because as we discussed earlier that there is like a lot of misinformation and there's like too much information. So I want to put my POV out there and thinking that it might help people. And then I've been like getting good feedback and basically it's working out. And I really enjoy the aspect of YouTube that it's like I'm sharing information in kind of like in a more patient way. Like on Instagram, like where I'm creating a lot of like short videos and reels. A lot of the times information is rushed. Like most of my reels are like 7 seconds and or 10 seconds. And I have to like fit in a lot of information. That means like I have to cut out a lot of information as well. So that's what I love about YouTube. So again, like I initially started from Instagram. I was sharing basically the whole idea of me starting Instagram was like I was the only woman in my team when I started my career, and the only women of my ethnicity. So I felt pretty lonely in the corporate environment. So I wanted to find people who look like me and people who are working in the tech domain. So that's when I started Instagram, and basically I found my community and found a lot of friends and found a lot of women who I could connect with. Eventually that led into me becoming a content creator where I'm now basically sharing a lot of like data science, career, money related content. Like I'm big into financial literacy and I talk a lot about it. So I share the things that I'm passionate about. Like I share about it on Instagram, which I see Instagram as like more of like a fun platform, but YouTube, I think of it like as a more serious platform where it's basically extension of the things that I'm doing on Instagram, where on YouTube I'm able to like expand more on it. So yeah, that was my long spiel. I I don't know if that was helpful.
Well, I agree.
But yeah.
I agree. YouTube is more serious because my half an hour video would have most of it would be like serious coding, and there will be difficult exercises at the end. So you got to be really committed if you want to be on YouTube. Cool.
Yeah.
So we are going to provide links of your YouTube and Instagram page in the video description below. Thank you very much. This was an amazing conversation. The viewers who are watching it will find it useful, and I really want to congratulate you for all the success that you got in your life.
And I do want to ask you, since I have you on the call, I do want to ask you, since you are the OG of data science on YouTube, do you have any tips for me?
Well, so
From my journey, I would say I loved explaining complex topics in a simple way. So kind of keeping it original is super important.
so keeping it very original, authenticate.
Mhm.
I always loved from very beginning to break down take a big complex topic. For example, convolutional neural network. Very hard to understand topic if person is reading about them for the first time. So I always think that how can I explain this extremely complex topic in a very simple way so that
Even a high school student can understand it easily. And what I do is I use visualization, analogies, and this is the skill I have built over a period of time. And now, I'm getting so many, my channel is growing so fast. My subscribers are suggesting me so many things. And I always feel like I want to do this, that.
but then I don't want to lose like what is my strong point and where I started. So I think keeping it original and
taking every single comment that you get in YouTube extremely positive. I think those are the two tips that I would share based on my journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to write that down right after this call. So thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll wrap this up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.